What book have you chosen for me to read to you?
Paddington.
And why did you choose Paddington?
Because I like it.
You like it, and you've seen the film, haven't you?
Yeah.
Why do you like Paddington?
Because he's funny and he's the best.
Read. Where do you think they are?
At a shop.
At a shop. Okay. What made you think it's a shop?
Because the tills have got numbers.
Oh, the tills have got numbers. Oh, I see. Yes, they do, don't they? In the supermarket, they do have numbers. So it could be a shop. It's very busy, isn't it? And people have got bags. Let's have a see if you're right. Mr. and Mrs. Brown first met Paddington on a railway platform. Oh, is it a shop?
No.
What is it?
A train.
A train station. Have you ever been on a train station?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be busy, and they have numbers as well. Oh, and I can see. I think this here. I think these might be the trains. So, Mr. and Mrs. Brown first met Paddington on a railway platform. In fact, that was how he came to have such an unusual name for a bear, because Paddington was the name of the station. The Browns were waiting to meet their daughter Judy, when Mr. Brown noticed something small and furry near the left luggage office. What do you think it is? Paddington. It looks like a bear, he said. A bear? Repeated Mrs. Brown. On Paddington Station? Oh, don't be silly, Henry. There can't be. But Mr. Brown was right. It was sitting on an old leather suitcase marked "Wanted on Voyage." And as they drew near, it stood up and politely raised its hat. Oh, do you know what a voyage is?
No.
No. Voyage is like a long journey. So Paddington had been on a long journey because he'd come all the way from darkest Peru. Good afternoon, it said. May I help you? It's very kind of you, said Mr. Brown. But as a matter of fact, we were wondering if we could help you. You're a very small bear, said Mrs. Brown. Where are you from? The bear looked around carefully before replying. Darkest Peru. I'm not really supposed to be here at all. I'm a stowaway. That means he didn't pay for his ticket. Stowaway, that means he got on the boat without anybody knowing and came all that way. It's pretty brave, isn't it? Would you do anything like that? No. No, me neither.
I keep him having you bought lots of marmalade. Lots of it.
Lots of it, because it would be a really long journey on that voyage.
Yeah.
You don't mean to say you've come all the way from South America on your own? Exclaimed Mrs. Brown. Whatever did you do for food? Unlocking the suitcase, the bear took out an almost empty glass jar. I ate marmalade, it said. Bears like marmalade. Mrs. Brown looked at the label around the bear's neck. It said quite simply, "Please look after this bear. Thank you." After him. Oh, Henry, she cried. We can't leave him here all by himself. There's no knowing what might happen to him. Can't he come home and stay with us? Stay with us? Repeated Mr. Brown nervously. Do you think he wants to? No. He looked down at the bear. Would you like that? He asked. That is, he added hastily, if you have nothing else planned. Oh, yes, replied the bear. I would like that very much. I've nowhere to go, and everyone seems in such a hurry. People often are at train stations, aren't they? Let's see. That settles it, said Mrs. Brown. Now you must be thirsty after your journey. Mr. Brown can get you some tea while I go and meet our daughter Judy. But Mary, said Mr. Brown, we don't even know its name. Mrs. Brown thought for a moment. I know, she said. We'll call him Paddington, after the station. Paddington? The bear tested it several times to make sure. It sounds very important. Mr. Brown tried it out next. Follow me, Paddington, he said. I'll take you to the snack bar. That sounds fun. What would you choose at the snack bar?
I don't know.
Don't know. I think I would have a cake. Maybe a chocolate cake. Mr. Brown was as good as his word. Paddington had never seen so many snacks on one tray, and he didn't know which to try first. He was so hungry and thirsty, He climbed up on the table to get a better look. Goodness me, what do you think other people would have thought?
I don't
I don't know. Do you think they would be expecting it?
know.
No. I think I'd be really surprised if somebody did that. I would probably stare. I think I'd probably stare and watch what they were doing. Mr. Brown turned away, pretending he had tea with a bear on Paddington Station every day of his life. Henry! Cried Mrs. Brown when she arrived with Judy. What are you doing to that poor bear? Paddington jumped up to raise his hat, and in his haste he trod on a strawberry tart, skidded on the cream, and fell over backwards into his cup of tea. Oops. What a mess. I think we'd better go before anything else happens, said Mr. Brown. Judy took hold of Paddington's paw. Come along, she said. We'll take you home, and you can meet Mrs. Bird and my brother Jonathan. What a mess they've left. I wouldn't be very happy if I was that waitress having to clear it up. Mr. Brown led the way to a waiting taxi. Number 32 Windsor Gardens, please, he said. The driver stared at Paddington. Bears is extra, he growled. Sticky bears is twice as much. And make sure none of it comes off on my interior. It was clean when I set out this morning. He's a bit grumpy, isn't he? The sun was shining as they drove out of the station, and there were cars and big red buses everywhere. Paddington waved to some people waiting at a bus stop, and several of them waved back. It was all very friendly. Paddington tapped the taxi driver on his shoulder. It isn't a bit like darkest Peru, he announced. The man jumped at the sound of Paddington's voice. Do you think he's going to be happy? No. Cream, he said bitterly. Cream and jam all over my coat. He slid the little window behind him shut. Oh dear, Henry, murmured Mrs. Brown. I wonder if we're doing the right thing. What do you think? You don't think they should have taken him home? Would you take him home if you found him?
No, I would probably walk.
Oh, so you'd have taken him, but you'd have walked him home rather than got a taxi. That's probably a sensible idea, isn't it? Fortunately, before anyone had time to answer, they arrived at Windsor Gardens, and Judy helped Paddington onto the pavement. Now you're going to meet Mrs. Bird, she said. She looks after us. She's a bit fierce at times, but she doesn't really mean it. I'm sure you'll like her. Paddington felt his knees begin to wobble. I'm sure I shall, if you say so, he replied. The thing is, will she like me? Oh, I think he's feeling a bit nervous. His knees were wobbling. Oh, I think she's probably going to like him. Goodness gracious, exclaimed Mrs. Bird. What have you got there? It's not a what, said Judy. It's a bear called Paddington, and he's coming to stay with us. A bear? Said Mrs. Bird as Paddington raised his hat. Well, he has good manners, I'll say that for him. I'm afraid I stepped on a jam tart by mistake, said Paddington. I can see that, said Mrs. Bird. You better have a bath before you're very much older. Judy can turn it on for you. I dare say you'll be wanting some marmalade too. I think she likes you, whispered Judy. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, but how does she know I bear like marmalade?
I don't know. How do you think she might know?
I don't know.
I wonder if maybe she's met a bear before. Maybe? So why do you think Judy thinks that Mrs. Bird likes Paddington?
Because she's looking after him.
Yeah, she's looking after him and telling him he can have a bath and she'll get him some marmalade. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen in the bathroom. Because you said Paddington does funny things, didn't you?
Yeah.
Paddington had never been in a bathroom before, and while the water was running, he made himself at home. First of all, he tried writing his new name in the steam on the mirror. Then he used Mr. Brown's shaving foam to draw a map of Peru on the floor. I'm not sure that was a good idea. It wasn't until the drip landed on his head that he remembered what he was supposed to be doing. He soon discovered that getting into a bath is one thing, but it's quite another matter getting out again, especially when it's full of soapy water. It's all overflowing, isn't it?
You said don't have to turn the tap off.
I was just going to say, what's he forgotten to do? He's forgotten to turn the tap off, so it will overflow. Oh no! Paddington tried calling out, help! At First in a quiet voice so as not to disturb anyone, then very loudly, "Help! Help!" When that didn't work, he began bailing the straw out with his hat. But the hat had several holes in it, and his map of Peru soon turned into a sea of foam. So why didn't the hat idea help him?
Because the water was too heavy.
It is quite heavy, but it also had holes in. So what would happen if he scooped the hat up, scooped the water up with his hat, and it had holes in?
It would fall out.
It would fall out. So that's no good.
No.
Suddenly, Jonathan and Judy burst into the bathroom and lifted a dripping Paddington onto the floor. "Thank goodness you're all right," cried Judy. "We heard you calling out." "Fancy making such a mess," said Jonathan admiringly. "You should have pulled the plug out." "Oh," said Paddington. "I never thought of that." When Paddington came downstairs, he looked so clean no one could possibly be cross with him. His fur was all soft and silky, his nose gleamed, and his paws had lost all traces of the jam and cream. The Browns made room for him in a small armchair, and Mrs. Bird brought him a pot of tea and a plate of hot buttered toast and marmalade. Very nice. "Now," said Mrs. Brown, "you must tell us all about yourself. I'm sure you must have had lots of adventures." "I have," said Paddington earnestly. "Things are always happening to me. I'm that sort of a bear." He settled back in the armchair. "I was brought up by my Aunt Lucy in darkest Peru," he began, "but she had to go into a home for retired bears in Lima." He closed his eyes thoughtfully, and a hush fell over the room as everyone waited expectantly. What was he going to say next? After a while, when nothing happened, they began to get restless. Mr. Brown tried coughing. Then he reached across and poked Paddington. "Well, I never," he said. "I do believe he's fast asleep." "After all that's happened to him," said Mrs. Brown, "is it any wonder?" What was your favourite bit in that story?
The bath bit.
The bath bit. And why was that your favourite bit?
Because he made a mess.
He's made such a mess. Oh my goodness, I wonder who's going to have to clear it up. Who do you think?
Because he's asleep. Everybody except for Paddington.
Everybody apart from him. I think you're probably right.